Yeah, there we go. All right, everybody, it's Thursday, which means Dr. Carlen Live Time, and we're here at a special afternoon time because, as you can see, I have some pretty awesome and special guests with me today, and I'm really, really excited, and we're surrounded by, all of this awesomeness, and I can't wait to share with you and tell you what this is all about. So today's episode is all about what is happening actually tomorrow, which is December 1st, and December 1st annually is actually celebrated or commemorated as World AIDS Day. So tomorrow is World AIDS Day, and that's why I wanted to bring you this super special episode with some really awesome guests and talk to you a little bit about World AIDS Day, about the history of HIV and AIDS in our country, and a little bit about what HIV is, what stigma is, and what you can do to support the cause. So thanks guys for watching. Yay! All right, so World AIDS Day. So I have these special guests, and who are you guys? Who are you? Tell the world who you are.
Well, I'm Cody. I'm the Gay Men's HIV Prevention Worker here at Regional HIV/AIDS Connection in London. And yeah, that's me.
That's you. All right. And?
My name's Holly, and I work at Regional HIV Connection as well as Women's HIV Community Development Coordinator.
Sweet. And you guys know me. I'm Dr. Carlen. I'm a sexologist, relationship psychotherapist, surrounded by two awesome people. And we're wearing our red scarves today, which is super fun. And the reason why we're wearing red scarves is not because they're really awesome and warm and, they're just kind of cozy. But it's because when you wear a red scarf around World AIDS Day, it actually looks like you're wearing a red ribbon. Isn't that really neat? So the Red Scarf Project, redscarf.ca, you can see it up behind me and all this beautiful yarn behind me, is actually a World AIDS Day campaign that was started here in London, Ontario, out of Regional HIV/AIDS Connection. So this is now the 6th year that we've been putting on this campaign, which is super freaking cool. And so this year we've collected, over 1,600?
Yeah.
Would you say? Over 1,600 red scarves. And it's not that we just collected them. We've had community members, and we invite other communities, and there are many other communities, especially in Ontario, who are now taking part in the Red Scarf Project. And what happens is that we invite community members all year long to grab some yarn from us and knit and crochet and put together these beautiful red scarves that we then distribute to people who are in need. We give them to a lot of really wonderful places, don't we? Where do we supply these red scarves to people?
Yeah, so shelters, community organizations, and just community members in general and the public to raise awareness about HIV and AIDS.
Yeah, so if you have a red scarf at home, put it on today, wear it tomorrow. This is all about supporting World AIDS Day, commemorating World AIDS Day, and wearing a red ribbon because it's really important and because it's really cool. I don't know if you guys know this, but the red ribbon was actually the first health awareness ribbon to happen, right? Right? Because we have yellow ribbons for what's the yellow daffodil ribbon? There's a yellow ribbon, there's a pink breast cancer ribbon, right? There's all these different colored ribbons, but the very first one in all of Canada was the red ribbon, and that's because of HIV and AIDS, which has an intense history, doesn't it, Cody?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the 80s is kind of when we really discovered HIV and AIDS, but it came out, it's not what it was named first. It was called GRID, right?
Yeah, so when HIV was first discovered, it was called GRID, which standard for gay-related immune disease. And so a lot of the blame for the development of HIV and AIDS was put on gay men, and it was almost exclusively seen in gay men. And so a lot of the media just assumed that it was a gay disease caused by gay sex. And yeah, that was really horrible.
Yeah, and so the community responded, and the community responded in a variety of different ways, right? So the community responded as we were trying to figure out what this virus was, what was going on. I know specifically here in London, that is when the Regional HIV/AIDS Connection happened. What year are we in? We just did 35 years, and that was about 3 years ago, so now we're 30. So 38 years ago, Regional HIV/AIDS Connection started, and as a response to what was happening, people were dying everywhere, and then John Gordon Home happened, didn't it?
Yeah, So John Gordon Home was really instrumental in providing an opportunity for people in the community to come together and provide care, provide support for people who were dying of AIDS at that time, because we didn't have the treatment that we now have for HIV. So people were not surviving at the rates that they are today. And John Gordon Home was really an example of the community coming together and supporting each other, and allowing those people who were affected in the 80s to die with dignity.
Yeah, which is like it was incredible, right? And then like ACT UP happened in Toronto, right? All of these like grassroots community organizations started happening because people were responding to their friends and family dying around them. But today, HIV and AIDS, HIV is not a death sentence, right? Yay! Like, it's so, like, I'm just, like, it's incredible. And it's because of the work of beautiful community members. It's because of the work of researchers. Western University, which I am an alumni of and super proud of, is, like, one of the forefront, like, at the forefront of research in HIV right now with Dr. Kang. He's, like, just blowing things out of the water. It's incredible the work that he's doing over at Western University. And then we have this, like, amazing organization here at Regional HIV/AIDS Connection who is really creating a movement here and really just attacking stigma where it needs to be attacked. And that's why we have now the Red Scarf Project. So the Red Scarf Project was not only created to battle stigma, but to also support programs and services for the people that we serve here. And then last week, if you guys were following me last week, I went and attended the Red Scarf Benefit Concert, which is like the best thing ever. We came up, and that's when I was here at Regional HIV/AIDS Connection working here, and we came up with this concert idea, and we were like, let's have a concert. Like, let's do something fun, because everything about HIV and AIDS is always so sad sometimes, right? And we need to honor, we need to celebrate, we need to remember, and we need to hope for a cure. And you can do that through community, through the coming together of community. So the Red Scarf Benefit Concert happened. And last week we had the Trues. We had 1,000 people come together who like had a lot of people didn't really even have a direct link, right, to HIV and AIDS, which was really cool. What did you guys think about seeing like all of those people in one place?
It was amazing. Like, that place was packed, and there were people, like all sorts of different people who didn't seem to have much connection, or people who had a lot of connection, people who were positive, people who were negative. The whole place was filled. There were over 1,000 people.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was really nice to see people come together. So people that are very engaged in the work that we're doing, people that are very knowledgeable, and then also people that had no idea what they were walking into, and they wanted to learn more. They were very open to hearing about why we were doing the concert. So it was a really amazing opportunity to educate the community.
Yeah. And last year on World AIDS Day, and I'm fingers crossed for this year, Justin Trudeau, our super baby Prime Minister, wore a red scarf on World AIDS Day and addressed the country. And that was a huge moment for those of us who work in the AIDS service industry organizations across the board, because that was about having national visibility and saying, hey, we're here. HIV/AIDS is still happening in our communities, and it has not gone away, and we're not going to ignore it, because not only is HIV and AIDS still happening, but stigma is something that we still are working towards removing, releasing, and battling, right? So, Cody, as MSM, you have like the longest title ever. Can you give us the title again?
Well, my title is like Gay Men's HIV Prevention Worker, so I
That's
work
it.
with like gay, bisexual, men who have sex with men, trans men, two-spirit folks, anybody sort of under the like male-identified human into male-identified human spectrum.
I love that. So why is your role so important today? Because people watching this will be like, well, HIV is a gay men's disease or whatever, right? So fair, and it started off that way, right? Historically, we saw it as a gay men's disease. So why is your role so important still?
Yeah, so gay men are historically fairly vulnerable to HIV. One of the reasons would be our lack of safer sex education for for queer folks in our public education system. So we talk about heterosexual sex and conception and what that looks like, and we usually deliver sex education through a fairly fear-based model, and that means that we neglect all the other awesome kinds of sex that different people have. So that's really important. And historically it has impacted gay men. It's not only a gay disease, but I think that it's important to acknowledge the resilience that we have in our community. I mean, like when HIV was first discovered, people were being left in hospital rooms to die. People were not being allowed to have Medicare. People were being denied access to a doctor because doctors didn't want to touch them. And it was gay men, largely gay men, who got together and formed reading groups where they would read scientific literature. And these were just like average Joes who had no idea about anything for science, but they would get together in these groups and try to develop community knowledge and try to educate each other and themselves in order to fight for themselves. So I think it's really cool that Justin Trudeau has worn that red scarf, like given the history of like having no recognition of this disease in our world.
Exactly, right? Exactly. We don't talk about queer sex, right? We don't talk about what that looks like, right? Everything is all about like, let's just not get pregnant. Well, there's a lot more to sex than let's just not get pregnant. And there's a lot of different types of bodies that have sex, thank God, because that's fun, right? That's how I like to spend a weekend. But, you know, there's so many other ways that we're having sex, and there's so many other ways that bodies are, and there's so many other ways that people are, and queer sex and high-risk sexual behaviors are part of that conversation, right?
Absolutely.
So because, well, first of all, let's talk about what high-risk sexual activities are, right? So what are some high-risk sexual activities?
So sex without a barrier, if the status of either partner is unknown, would be considered fairly high risk.
Yeah.
We know that receptive sex tends to have a higher level of vulnerability because...
receptive sex, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so anal sex can be higher risk just because of the makeup of the anal tissue, but also vaginal sex because of that. Just that surface area, that large warm surface area, is a good environment for a virus to live in.
Yeah.
So that makes women particularly vulnerable, and it also can increase risk for men who are having receptive sex.
Well, so let's talk about that. So Holly, so we, like, and we're gonna come back to you, don't worry. But so we talked about how historically speaking, HIV was seen as like a gay men's disease. However, Holly's position also equally as important. As the women's I'm sorry,
Community development
thank you, Women's Community Development Coordinator, thank you. And as the Women's Community Development Coordinator, also a super important role, because why? Like, what are we seeing now in terms of how the virus is impacting our communities?
So we know that 1 in about 4 to 5 new cases of HIV transmission occurs in women. So in addition to those physical vulnerabilities, those biological vulnerabilities, women have very unique social vulnerabilities. So they can be more susceptible to HIV transmission through sexual assault, through coercive sex, through relationship violence, through any population that we see experiencing poverty or homelessness, substance dependence, all become more vulnerable to HIV transmission. So when we're working with women, we have to be aware about how all of those issues can overlap and intersect and increase with risk for women. Yeah.
Intersectional feminism, woo woo! That's what we're talking about here. Just saying. But it's interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the fastest growing population of people who are contracting HIV now women? Isn't that true? Is that true?
It has been on the rise. Rates have been on the rise among heterosexual women, and in particular
amongst heterosexual women,
and women who inject drugs as well.
Yeah.
That increases risk. Folks who inject drugs are at very high risk for HIV transmission, specifically in London, because we know that we have very high rates. The health unit has identified a public health epidemic with HIV and Hep C here in London.
Yeah, we are here in London, Ontario. We're in the middle of an HIV epidemic right now. That's happening.
Yeah.
And tell me, can you tell that number? Sorry, my apologies, but that stat that you gave me before we started about how many women. Yeah, can we talk about that?
So, not women in particular, but among in London in general. So I was at a focus group last week for supervised consumption services here in London, which we're really excited about, doing a lot of work towards. And they let us know that last year in 2016, there were 61 new diagnosed HIV cases here in London, Ontario, while the same year there were 20 new cases diagnosed in all of British Columbia. So I think that that's really significant when we look at how the perception of the problem in BC, and then when we look at the numbers here in London, it really gives context to the crisis we're facing.
And a lot of the awesome work that they're doing in BC was because of, now we call it the safe consumption site, but some of you might know it as the safe injection site, right? That language I know just recently has just changed. But I know it's because of a lot of the awesome work that they're doing in BC. Wouldn't you agree? That's why you're seeing a decrease in numbers there, but we're seeing an increase in numbers here locally where we're living.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Canada. So how many HIV cases are there in Canada?
So there are about 75,000 people in Canada living with HIV. But it's also estimated that about 20% of folks living with HIV don't know it, because not everyone's being tested.
Isn't that, I really want you guys to hear that. Approximately 75,000 Canadians are HIV positive. 20% of that number are people who do not know their status, who do not know that they are HIV positive because of...
So access to testing,
fear to testing, stigma to getting tested for STIs and HIV. So many people I find, right, even when I just talk about my friends, right, they'll be like, oh, I had sex with this guy last night, and I'll be like, great, did you use a condom? And they'll be like, no, but I'm not worried. And I'm like, what do you mean you're not worried? They're like, well, I'm on the pill and stuff. And I'm like, okay. So I get it that you don't want to get pregnant, and I think that's as a cisgendered woman, that's one of my concerns as well. However, STI testing is it's necessary, right? It's not only necessary, it's life-saving. And for some reason, we're worried about getting tested for STIs when it's as easy as just all you got to do is pee in a cup. You pee in a cup, they send it away, they tell you what's going on. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but the most common symptom of an STI, including HIV, is also considered an STI, is no symptom at all. The most common symptom of an STI is no symptom at all. And it takes approximately 10 years for the HIV virus to be HIV in your system to go onto full-blown AIDS. Now, HIV and AIDS, not a death sentence. Thank God for that. However, treatment, the faster you get into treatment, the better it is for you and for your health. Would you agree?
It's better for just, general health, for outcomes, but also in reducing transmission rates. If someone's on treatment, then their viral load is suppressed, and that prevents HIV transmission. So.
Well, and is it World Health Organization? No. Who just did undetectable...
U equals U?
U equals U.
Yeah, I think it is the World Health Organization.
Yeah, somebody... So
or the CDC or something.
Somebody really awesome who's in charge of a lot of things health-related. We'll get back to you on what that is about. Recently is talking about a campaign that U equals U, undetectable equals untransmittable.
Yeah.
Right? What does that mean?
Yeah, so there's a campaign going around that's called U equals U, or undetectable equals untransmittable. And the idea is if somebody's taking HIV medication, they can if they're taking it and adhering to it, some people can achieve such a low viral load that their HIV isn't detectable by traditional blood tests. And what that's meant over a number of studies is that they actually haven't been transmitting the virus. So people with that low amount of HIV in their blood due to being on medications, based on some of the studies, there haven't been any transmissions. So there was one study, it was called the Partners study, And there were like 56,000 sexual encounters over this study, and there were couples who were serodiscordant, so one person was positive, one person was negative.
Serodiscordant, that's what that word is.
Yeah.
It took me a little bit to learn that word. Serodiscordant means one person in the relationship is HIV positive and the other person is not. That's what that word means. Anyways,
Yeah.
Seromagnetic.
Seromagnetic?
I like that.
Ooh, what does that
Yeah.
mean? What is seromagnetic?
That's
Is
the
it the
same
same
thing. It
thing?
just sounds nicer.
I like that. I'm gonna start using that.
Seromagnetic. Ooh, yeah, we're gonna start using
Yeah.
that. Switching up our language.
Yeah.
Okay.
So people in the seromagnetic couples,
Ooh.
there were no transmissions over 56,000 sexual encounters. So so over 56,000 times of having sex with one partner who was positive and undetectable, and the other partner was negative. The negative partner did not get HIV. So that's being looked at as one method of safer sex. And there's also another thing that's really important to remember is that it's actually safer to have sex with somebody who's positive and undetectable than somebody who says that they're negative and you don't know when the last time they've been tested is.
And now, so like, thank you science, and I mean like, I'm a natural witch in every way. However, thank you science, right? Thank you research, and it's because of people supporting, wearing red scarves, donating money, giving to research. That's why we're able to have these amazing medications that are prolonging life. People don't die from HIV anymore. Well, let me take that back. Many people in North America are privileged to not die of HIV and HIV-related illnesses anymore. That does not mean around the rest of the world, but where we currently are here in Canada, where I currently am here in Canada, we have some privileges around that, and I need to just like address that is a privilege, right? Our healthcare system is a privilege.
Yeah, and I think it's also really important to note that that privilege isn't, while it should be available, we have the technology, we have the knowledge, we have the medications, that it isn't accessible to everyone in our country, even though we are a privileged country. So
yes.
When we look at those numbers in London, it's clear that not everybody is engaged in healthcare, not everybody has access to the same resources. So what we're seeing is people who are using drugs, particularly injection drugs, people who are street involved, they might not have access to those medications. So while they are available and while they are working when people have access and are adhering, what we're not seeing is that people who are very socially vulnerable are able to access them and benefit from that,
Totally.
that research in the same way that others are.
And that's why we're in the middle of an epidemic. Here, in a very affluent, beautiful city of London, Ontario, we are in the middle of an HIV epidemic, right? 61 new cases alone last year, compared to the entire province of British Columbia had only 20. Our city had 61 new cases alone, right? What does that tell you about privilege? What does that tell you about how we're supporting our communities? What does that tell you about what's really going on that we as a community are afraid to face? I think that tells me a lot.
Yeah, and oftentimes I think it's hard for people to talk about, to have these conversations.
Totally.
And I've heard people say, they're difficult conversations to have, and I don't think they're necessarily difficult. They might be uncomfortable, but they're important, and that's the main thing. So if we're talking about it, we're talking about what are prevention strategies. We're talking about what resources are available.
Yeah.
How can we get people connected to care if they're already living with HIV, so that we can keep those viral loads suppressed, so that we can reduce rates in our community.
Well, let's talk about some prevention strategies, because you have a really great prevention strategy that is like just blowing up on the market with the Sex You Want, the Gay Men's Sexual Health Alliance, GMSH. They're talking a lot about PrEP and Truvada. What is PrEP and what is Truvada? Let's tell everybody what that's about.
Yeah, so PrEP is a medical breakthrough, and it's a once-a-day pill that you can take to prevent HIV. It's up to 99% effective, and it's kind of similar to the idea of birth control. So you take it every single day, and you have sex with condoms, without condoms, barebacking, it doesn't really matter, but it is 99% effective at preventing HIV. And yeah, there's been a lot of stuff in the media about it lately. It's usually marketed towards gay men, but it's actually for everybody who's interested in HIV prevention.
Because that's actually what I was going to ask you. Can men and women both take Truvada?
Yeah, so people of any gender can take Truvada.
Or any gender, sorry.
As far as like trans people, the research hasn't been done, but that's not to say that it couldn't be taken or isn't being taken by trans people,
Mm-hmm.
but most of the research has been in cis men. There's also been research in cis women,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, anybody can take it, and it's great. It actually just got funded under the Ontario Works, Trillium.
What, really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Ontario ODSP, Ontario Disability Support
Yep.
Program, or whatever that is.
Yeah, ODSP,
Yeah.
OW, and the Trillium Foundation
Yeah.
are now all...
And ODB.
And ODB,
Ontario Drug Benefit.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. I was
So-
like, I don't know what
So
that
now
means.
it's covered under all those things. So traditionally, PrEP was fairly hard to access and still kind of is. In provinces that are not in Ontario, you can't get coverage for it. And a generic also just came out. So before, Truvado was $1,000 a month, and now the generic is like around $300 a month, depending on which generic you get. And it's covered, so that's great. So yeah, use condoms or get on PrEP or do both, and it doesn't protect against other STIs, so there's also that to keep in mind. But it's an amazing medical breakthrough and something that should be celebrated in our community, and something
Absolutely.
that we need lots of awareness about.
Thank you, researchers. Thank you, everybody, for doing it. Because I don't know if you know this, but if you have an STI, right, first of all, most common symptom of an STI is no symptom of it at all. Secondly, if you have an STI, especially if it's an undiagnosed STI, you are actually putting yourself at a greater risk of contracting another STI, including HIV and AIDS. Correct?
That's right, yeah. And so another cool thing about PrEP is just that engagement with healthcare. So when somebody gets on PrEP, they're going to be getting tested regularly at their doctor. So if they're engaged in high-risk sex, they might be more vulnerable to other STIs. If they're only using PrEP to prevent their HIV and not using condoms, then they might be more susceptible to chlamydia and gonorrhea and the other ones that are so common. But because they're then connected to that doctor and being tested every 3 months, they're more likely to be treated. So it just improves health outcomes overall.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and oddly enough, there were some things in the media that I saw, and apparently PrEP is actually reducing the amount of STIs. So PrEP doesn't, like medically, PrEP doesn't prevent against any other STIs, but it seems to be that people who are on PrEP are actually getting less STIs, and that could be because of a greater awareness of safer sex. It also could be because people who are on PrEP have to be tested every 3 months to continue taking PrEP. And so there's that engagement with doctors as well. So
And when you're taking a pill, like something like that, right? Generally speaking, when your health is at your top of mind, you're going to want to talk about it more also, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that's allowing people to also have more open conversations about their sexual health and their sexual health status. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, those are really important conversations to have. And
Totally.
I mean, any doctor can prescribe PrEP, but not every doctor is going to feel comfortable with it or be willing to do it. So your doctor would be your first point of contact if you think that PrEP would be a good fit for you. But if that doesn't go over well, you could contact us at Regional HIV/AIDS Connection to sort of steer you in the right direction. The health unit's great. There are lots of people out there that are doing a lot of work to make sure that this gets into the hands of the people that need it.
you can also go to thesexyouvant.ca. It's a web resource for gay men's sexual health, but on there's a PrEP directory, and it's got a list of doctors in every region in Ontario, and these are doctors who know about PrEP and are comfortable prescribing it. So if you're looking to see what doctor in your community or what kind of community health organization you might go to, you can go to that website, thesexyouvant.ca.
Thesexyouvant.ca.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so
Yeah.
just like, I want sex and I want it now, right? Like, I don't know. It's really exciting for me. That's really cool. So great. So is there anything else in terms of like what you guys do, what either of you do that you think is important for everyone to kind of know about HIV and AIDS, about World AIDS Day, all of that?
I think that something else that I like people to know about is PEP. So we
PEP.
have PrEP.
We have PrEP.
PrEP
Yeah.
you take is the pill that you take once a day to prevent transmission. PEP is for people who feel that they might have been exposed to the HIV virus. So it's more like a morning after pill. If PrEP is birth control, then PEP's the morning after. So you could go to the emergency room after a potential HIV exposure and ask for PEP or post-exposure prophylaxis. Ideally within 72 hours. They'll sometimes give it up to 90 hours. And you would take that pill for 30 days to, again, prevent HIV transmission.
All the knowledge, my friends, all the knowledge. So let's leave you with just one last quick thing. What are the 5 fluids that transmit HIV? Because I think it's really important. Because even when I do talks like to university and college students or just like to people in general, and I ask people, what are the 5 fluids that transmit HIV? And there's always one that comes up, and I'm like, no, and you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, but like, no. So what's for one fluid that transmits HIV? Blood. So blood, right? Blood to blood contact. HIV is transmitted blood to blood contact, right? Something open in your body, in your mouth, in your body, inside of you, little cut, little something, direct entry into your bloodstream.
I wouldn't say little cut. So I would say direct
or just direct, not even a cut,
so
just
if you
direct.
have a little cut, you're bleeding
Thank
out,
you.
right? Your blood's flooding.
That's true.
It's pushing any dirt or infection outward.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
There's never been a known transmission where somebody had a little cut and got some blood on them and seroconverted.
This is why I have them.
Intravenous drug use is if somebody's sharing needles and they're injecting that blood directly into their bloodstream.
Yeah.
That's a very high risk activity. But,
Super.
Little cuts like that, not a huge concern.
Yeah.
What about needle stick injuries? Are those likely to get HIV?
Not likely. There's never been a reported case of HIV transmission due to a needle stick injury.
That one I knew. That one I was like, I know that one. Okay, second fluid. So we talk about blood. Second fluid is?
Semen.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what that was, but semen. So semen, cum, ejaculate from a person that has semen in their bodies.
So the reason that is high risk during sexual encounters is because every time we have sex, there's little micro tears, which are then a direct entry to our bloodstream. So we don't feel it usually. It doesn't hurt, but specifically in anal tissue, it's because of that makeup of the tissue, it's more prone to tearing. That's why we recommend using lots and lots of lube.
Lots of lube.
Even, from a harm reduction perspective, if somebody is not using condoms, which we always recommend, we would say use lots of lube. So not even store-bought lube. Most things that you find in your kitchen,
olive oil,
cabinet,
coconut oil, as long as you're not using latex condoms. That's for only if you're not using latex condoms. You can use oils. Okay, so blood, semen,
vaginal fluid.
Vaginal fluids. Vaginal fluids also transmit HIV. I'm gonna let you just take that over. Yeah.
So it is less risky for a female who is HIV positive to transmit to a male who is HIV positive, again, just due to that biology. So the opening to the penis is very small. The surface area of the vagina is much bigger. But we do know that it's
I love how this was my symbol for vaginal surface area. Vaginal surface area. Okay.
But there is risk involved. So we always recommend using barriers if possible.
Great. Blood, semen, vaginal fluids, bum juice. What were you going to say?
Rectal fluid.
Right, he's a rectal fluid. Rectal fluids, anal fluids, bum juice. I like to call it bum juice. Anyone want to take that one over? Bum juice.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, no, we're like looking at you. We're like,
Yeah, so when you have anal sex, there's a lot of fluid going on there, and that fluid can transmit HIV.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so the reason why anal sex... and I don't like calling it gay sex because it's not gay sex because all bodies, all sex orientations have anal sex. So the reason why anal sex is actually considered a higher risk activity is because there is only one layer of epithelial cells in your rectum versus a vagina has many layers, right? Your skin has many layers of epithelial cells. Your rectum though, your butt only has inside one layer of epithelial cells. So it is more susceptible to those micro tears. It is more susceptible to absorbing, the virus through that layer. Because it's just less kind of protected, right? Would you guys agree? Anything about that? Yeah. And then the fifth and final fluid is breast milk, not saliva. Saliva does not transmit HIV. You can literally make out with anybody. I was like, look at it. You can literally make out with everybody, and it's going to be totally fine. But breast milk, however, is a fluid that does transmit HIV.
Yeah, and it's interesting because breast milk is one of the exceptions to the U equals U.
Yeah.
Sort of
Oh, is it?
rule. Yeah.
Okay.
So, we know that positive moms, if they're on treatment, they can have HIV negative babies, and that's what's happening most of the time here in Canada.
Yep.
So if mom's on treatment, then there's less than a 1% chance that baby will be HIV positive. However, if that mom is breastfeeding, because the HIV virus is passed through breast milk, that risk can go up to about 40%. So we don't recommend that moms who are positive do breastfeed their babies or chest feed their babies. We have a program here in Ontario called the Teresa Group, who gives free formula to families who are who have an HIV positive mom, so that she doesn't have to nurse. There are a lot of complications and challenges around that, but that is available. And yeah,
so cool.
Infants have a very underdeveloped immune system. They don't have all that stomach acid to fight off the virus, and it's eating that milk day and night. There's very high levels of exposure. So
totally.
Yeah.
So interesting. Okay, so 5 fluids. Those are the only 5.
Not urine, not tears.
Not urine, not
sweat.
tears, not sweat, not saliva, not, I don't even know. I don't even know what some of you guys thinking.
Like some funny ones.
Yeah. What have you gotten?
Eyeball juice.
Eyeball juice? Somebody think you get HIV through eyeball juice?
Question, yeah.
I mean, I'd rather people ask, right, than not ask. I think that's way more important. Like, I don't care how silly you think the question is. I would rather you ask, to be honest with you. So I think it's awesome that someone asked you, can I get HIV through eyeball juice? Also, what are you doing with your eyeballs that you're getting it juicy enough to be able to give that juice to somebody else? That's a whole other show, is what that is about. Okay. Well, anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for being aware, for wanting to be aware. Thank Cody and Holly here for being awesome humans, for sharing about World AIDS Day that's happening tomorrow all over the world. We're going to be attending the vigil here in London, the London AIDS Vigil at 7 o'clock. Is it at Trinity United Church? It's going to be there. But we're also going to be streaming. If you go to Regional HIV AIDS Connection Facebook page, they're going to be streaming live the vigil. Tonight they're going to be streaming it live from Stratford. Tomorrow it's going to be streaming live here in London, Ontario. And in your local community, see what's going on. If you see a whole bunch of red scarves happening, that might mean that there is an opportunity for you to get involved, to volunteer, to maybe knit or crochet a scarf, maybe to donate $5 just to the cause, to support the free programs and services that AIDS service organizations all around the country, and especially in your community and here in Ontario and here in London, support the people who live here and the 6 surrounding counties. So thank you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. And thank you guys. Happy World AIDS Day. Mwah!